The Business Simplicity Podcast, where leaders share their most successful strategies and the failures that inspired them, so business owners and managers can avoid the suffering and reap the benefits. With your host, Chris Parker.
And welcome to the Business Simplicity Podcast. This is Chris Parker, and I'm having a conversation with Jen Dumitrescu, who is a real estate agent and a coach for real estate agents in the, I want to say, greater Toronto area. I know Jen from, years ago when we were working at a company in Canada, and she was doing something other than real estate at the time. And I believe that's going to be part of the story on how her, I hope it's part of the story, how her previous experience has contributed to her own successful real estate practice and also bringing that into helping others. She does have a book that is about how to run a successful real estate business, insider tips for real estate agents on how to work less and earn more. When reading this, there's definitely parts in there about real estate, but I would argue that this is actually a helpful book for anyone starting a small business. And we'll get into that, I think, through the discussion. So, Jen, thank you so much for taking the time.
Thank you.
Maybe just kick us off with, and the opening question is, in the briefest way possible, can you share with us, what is it that you do?
Sure. So in addition to being a real estate agent, which I have been in Toronto for the past 16 years, I have now started a consulting company to help agents run their business like a business. So in real estate, we're never really taught that we are business owners or that there's a business operation to what we do. It's mostly you sell homes, but as any self-employed person knows, there's other elements, right? There's accounting, there's business development, there's probably people management if you've got an assistant and if you're growing. But those skills and how to run it they're never taught in real estate school per se. There are lots of coaches in real estate to help you get more leads, to help you nurture the leads you have. But again, if you don't have good business fundamentals, that's just going to disappear, right? If you don't have a database where you can enter the leads and make sure that you're following up with them, then having a coach to give you more leads is pretty much pointless. A lot of agents are missing the basics. And so my goal is to help them get those basics so that their business can run more effectively. And they can still have the coach, but now when they get the leads, they're going to have a better system in place. And or just for their personal time too. This is going to sound really surprising, but many agents don't actually get paid because they never submit the paperwork to get paid. They just never get to it. It's like one of those things after you've been running around and doing offers and working, 16 hours a day and being called here and there, you're like, paperwork or sit down and do something personal. That's the choice. So, if I can give them systems and processes that enable A, to get help, or B, to show them how to systemize those 2-minute tasks, then A, they're going to be getting paid, and or B, they're going to have more leads and be able to close leads. And I guess the third option is be able to provide better service to their existing clients, right? So that's sort of where I've come in. I don't think that there's a niche for this. There isn't anyone that I know that's doing this directly. And unlike coaching, which is continuous, and you meet with your coach, you could have a coach for years. What I would like to do is just sort of step in and say, how do we streamline this one portion of what you're looking at? Or where are you really struggling? Let's just work on that. Kind of a get in, help them, and then I'm gone kind of thing.
I'm curious about the why, meaning you're already a successful real estate agent, and then now you're actually sharing some of your secrets of success, perhaps even with maybe competitors. And, so what is the drive or the impact that you're seeking to make with writing the book and providing the coaching and the courses? It's a interesting evolution.
That's a great question. Thank you. I've found over the years that people naturally come to me and ask me how I've done this or how I've done this because they've seen that I've done things that are pretty systemized. I would say in real estate, there's two mindsets. There's either the competitive mindset or there's the collaborative, your clients are never going to be my clients because we have different personalities, right? And that, I think it does go to mindset as well. So I have always been in the more collaborative mindset. And so for me, I'm not going to worry about sharing my secrets because no one is going to do it like me. And I've also decided that I need something more and I want to build something bigger. And if I can actually help the industry be a bit more professional, because I think there's a lot, I know there is a lot of people that enter this for the sole reason of earning money and having a flexible work schedule, which is sort of the furthest from the truth about what being a self-employed person is. I think they'll be better if I can help coach people or guide people in how to set up their business. They're going to be more successful and they're going to have a more professional outlook, and it might help change the industry a bit. So I don't know. I feel it's just time to switch gears. And after 16 years of real estate, I need new challenges and I'm burnt out from it too. And so I need to eliminate that for other people.
So something that you've mentioned to me in the past that, and it's also in the book, that I had no idea and I find very bizarre is and correct me if I'm wrong, but in the real estate industry, if you're an agent working for I don't know, you would call it a brokerage house or something, you actually pay that agency to work for them. And that seems like a bit the world upside down to me. So I can imagine you need to bring your own efficiencies because they're already sort of making their cut in a way. And then, operational efficiency is really for the agents to figure out. Is that sort of how it works?
Yeah, there's a couple of elements to that. So the first element is, you're right, it's upside down. It's very archaic. The model in most places, and my office is, an exception. They are a small percentage that doesn't look at the real estate world like this. The model is, you come and work for us, give us money. We don't really care what you do. So whether you're successful or not, doesn't matter. You still owe us monthly dues. You still give us a cut of your commission. If you want to sleep all day, go ahead, sleep. I'm considered a contractor. That's how I've had to set up my taxes, right? So for the most part, they don't care. The second element to it is because I think the margins in brokerages are so tight, they don't have the resources to train people properly. And if you look at the training really comes down to trial and error, getting out there. A lot of the training has to happen at 10 o'clock or 11 o'clock at night when you're in the middle of the deal. And so for many managers that run these offices, it's just not a feasible model, right? Like, how do you run an office all day long, but then field calls all night long from agents with questions and stuff like that? So one of two things happen. You either learn your own method, which really it's like the Wild West in terms of some of the methods that can be learned, or you drop out. Like, that's a lot of agents don't succeed. So my goal would be one of the programs I've created is training for agents. And it's good for new agents to get into the business because then they'll learn the fundamentals right out of the gate. But also if you're an experienced agent, there's a lot that you can learn, because again, going back, I was talking to an agent the other day and he's like, when I got into this, it must have been like late 80s. It was all about like drugs and alcohol and, doing deals well under the influence in a huge party scene. And you're dealing with someone's like largest assets, right? But people are all like, yeah, this is the way to go. Real estate's a party. So if you take that model and see how people have progressed, yes, there's been more training, but again, not on the premise of you can't sign deals under the influence. Like that's just bad business.
So if we talk about like the tip or the strategy or tactic, you say don't do business while drunk. Is that?
I would like to think that is a basic element out there under contractual law. However, I would be surprised at how many agents I talk to, and they're like, "Yeah, I've had a couple glasses of wine. It's better for sure." And that agent who was telling me that, he's like, I've seen a shift in the market. I think that agents are way more professional. His definition of professional and mine are two different things, right? So is there better behavior? Sure. Is there less drinking, sex, drugs, alcohol, whatever it is? Sure. But does that make somebody a professional in terms of how they run their business? No. So, for brokerages, I see an opportunity for them to keep people and to incent them to do better by buying this program and giving it to them, right? It's going to mean less work for them. It's going to ensure that they have an agent that's probably running things better. So there's not going to be any regulatory board complaints. Keep them at their office and produce a higher volume. If we have to pay by deal, which we do in most cases, then you want an agent that's going to be doing deals and doing them well.
And not drunk. What is, and this is sort of the question of the podcast, meaning what is a strategy or tactic that's helped you succeed and that you're now coaching and training other people on? What is one really key tactic that people can deploy pretty quickly that will have a really nice payback that they can benefit their practice right now?
I just did a masterclass on hiring an assistant. And one of the tips that I did in that, because for agents, there's two thoughts. I don't have time to do training. So how could I possibly hire somebody? And B, what would I give them to do? And C, I'm not organized enough to do that. So the tip that I gave to them was, and whether you want an assistant or not, I think that this is still a good tip and you could make it work. Use a virtual admin company, hire somebody part-time, you paying hourly, and get them to go through one of your tasks and have them record it. And then have them itemize all the step-by-step things. When you can start building a manual or start building your systems and your processes, you're going to be more efficient because now you can bring somebody in to help you. So to start that, because most people also don't have the diligence to sit down and write them all out. I did it and it took me a long time. Even recently, my current operations manager and we went through them between Christmas and New Year's this year, and we spent 3 solid days going through them, and they were already created. So this was so most agents don't have the wherewithal to do that. I mean, I was some sort of crazy to sit down and do it when I did it. But if I could offer that little tip, doing that and having somebody else to do it with is going to keep you accountable for that 1 hour. Just schedule 1 hour if you want to, a week or 2 hours, and write down a task. Then you got the next task. And now suddenly you're going to start building a manual that is your processes. And then maybe you can start looking at getting some help or, whatever the case may be. But now you're a bit more organized and you're getting over the mental hurdle of now what? How could I do that? What would I give them?
And very selfishly, interested in because I've been considering hiring a virtual assistant to help with the podcast as well, because there's a lot of logistics and things going on behind and all the posting and social and making of pages and tracking and scheduling and all of that shizzle. which on one hand I enjoy doing, and I have a suspicion that you enjoy documenting processes as well. That's maybe a dark side of your personality. And I also like geeking out on, the creative process. But how would you recommend to actually find the perfect assistant once you have an idea of what you would want the person to do?
Also a great question. I just also covered this in the masterclass. So not two things. There's probably many more. First, accept that it's going to change. So what you're looking for now might change. So go after what you want right now. And I would suggest starting part-time and finding somebody that meets the exact need of what you want right now. Because once that is ready and up, you might find that there's different ways that they can support you. So I would go after that one thing. I would then look online or have I've used Virtual Gurus. They're a virtual company here in Canada. They're all over the world. And look for that person. They usually have categories of people. So you can ask them, say, this is what I'm looking for. And then they can provide that. The benefit of using a company such like that is that they have the contract with the employee. So if something goes wrong, you're not on the hook for that, right? Especially if you're doing anything with personal information, or, there's stuff that's there's privacy concerns, or they're just dealing with that stuff that belongs to you as well. So having a contract is important. The next thing I would say is look at the type of person and the hour and the hours that you want to give them. So I had originally looked at somebody in the Philippines. Having somebody with a 12-hour time change didn't work for me because I needed someone more immediate, right? But if for you don't really care and things can take 24 hours, then that might be a better option for you. Is it more cost effective? Yes. But then you're going to sort of get into the concept of, do I want to pay somebody this much, or do I want to pay somebody this much who's invested in my company and wants to do a better job and maybe can grow with me as well? So for me, I chose somebody she's 2 hours from me, but so that's local enough for me, and our schedules work well. They also sort of need to be the same energy as you, right? Like if you're somebody that is very energetic and likes to talk, and that person's not, you might struggle to connect and to share ideas and to help grow things. If you really just want someone to follow exact tasks, then it doesn't matter. So I would identify what your immediate need is, fill that skill set, see where you want them to go. Like if you're like, I just need this for now and it's temporary, then you're going to have less weight in the person and how you guys collaborate. If you're thinking this person could grow with me, then source from that perspective. Does that answer that?
Well, yeah, I like the just start dimension of it. Because that's, a thing of waiting for the perfect definition of what you want and finding the perfect person. Well, of course that never happens. So just start.
When then. Most people get caught up in the when then, and that in hiring an assistant, you're always like, oh, if only this was organized, then I could give it to them. If this was done, then I could give it to them. And that is, you'll never do it. You just have to dive in. You just have to start. And if you start part-time, you're going to be okay, because then you're not worried about the financial element of it. You're like, oh, I'm only paying them for when I use them. And I would also practically set time a week with them. So with Jessica, I call her my BOM, business operations manager, we set 3 hours in the first week together to do some training. And then it starts layering and it becomes a little bit easier, because most people are like, are they really going to have that much stuff to do? I don't know. When they finish that, then what? Again, when then. Don't get caught up in the when then. You just got to, and worst case, it doesn't work. Then you say, and if you're working with a company, you can give your 2 weeks notice and say bye and you walk away. That's it. Or you can then say, this was good, but now I need this. And you can modify and change it.
When you talked about the sort of the reason you do this, and you mentioned, that agents come into the industry, and I think it, again, when I read your book, the How to Run a Successful Real Estate Business, 5% of it is really targeted at your industry, and the rest of it is just solid practical experience from someone who's also explaining a bit how to do it. So it's not like, go get a website and have a database, but it goes to the next level, which I really like. But it seems like some of these things could really be the difference between success or failure. So, because if someone comes in and doesn't structure themselves and doesn't achieve some level of free time, so what happened, if you're willing to share, in the people you work with or with yourself that inspired you to really, like, how did you get to this point of really operationalizing all this and operationalizing to the point that you could give some work away and you could actually delegate? Was that just inherent to your personality, or was there lessons along the way that?
I think I looked at my life and realized I didn't want to be running the rat race of real estate forever. And so then I sat down and figured out, what is it that I want to do? And when I came up with running a real estate company, and not real estate as in running a brokerage that deals with real estate agents, but just running a real estate company, then I thought, what does that look like? Well, people are always asking me how I do things, so maybe I should help them with that kind of stuff. Then came the book, which, writing that was really a challenge for me. So, and I asked myself every day why I was doing it. And through the book came the idea for the program, because my office only hires experienced agents, but they realized that many new agents could turn out to be really good if they had the right training. And so that triggered me to okay, how do I give the right training? And because I think I'm such a practical person, and, when I met you, I was doing ISO 9000 stuff, which to me was utterly boring. And I can't believe that somehow it's resurrected itself into my life, but it has. It's like being a Girl Guide, I suppose, learning how to build a fire. It's like one of those things you're like, when am I ever going to use this in life? But somehow it ends up being okay, and you do use it.
And it comes back. Those people that don't know, ISO 9000 is a quality standard around operations and proceduralizing things. And yeah, I think there's a certain way of looking at the world when you simplify and document and harmonize. It resonates with me a bit because one of the reasons that I developed the Simplicity Scan was also in response to so many people over time asking me advice about their business. And when I realized is I'm asking the same series of questions every time. Why are you doing this? What's your purpose? Who's your customer? Customer? I haven't thought about that. Well, okay. What product are you going to provide them? How are they going to experience it? What mindset are you bringing to this? It was sort of it forced me into sort of systematizing the coaching questions into that framework as well. So
it also means that you were naturally very good at helping people. And so indirectly, people sensed that, or not, they probably directly sensed it, but indirectly, they were pulling you to sort of where you should be, which is making things simple, right? And making things easy too.
And here we are.
A nice thing. Yeah.
Well, it's also, I think, for my own suffering, meaning having worked with large organizations with, financial services, for example, that have high margins, a lot of hobby projects, a lot of layered complexity because people just keep doing what they think is right without actually, simplicity can be hard. Like you said, 3 hours refining processes. And I imagine you were with Jessica, your bomb. How can we improve this? And that's work to say, okay, well, maybe this whole step we can skip if we did that, but that requires some sort of cognitive thought and insight, and it's work. So, and
I running, for me, because I still do real estate, I'm on the board of directors for my condo corporation, which I know that doesn't sound like but with COVID, it's been a truckload of work. And then starting this consulting company, what I've realized is my time is short. And so I need to be more efficient, both in my communication with people, how I run my business. And then that also led to me saying, how can I help other real estate agents be more efficient? Because we do not get a lot of personal time. And there's this struggle between the world is your oyster financially, so should you just keep working, the reality of burnout, and then zero training, how do you stop that cycle? And so if I can streamline people's business just a little bit, and just, most people don't even think about that, right? Because they're not thinking about this as a company or a business, they don't ever, it doesn't cross their mind. I can make things easier. I can simplify this. I don't need to drive across town to pick up a check. I can send a courier. It's just not there. Like and I think probably similar to what you see in the corporate world, it's kind of just like a machine. People are just like, oh yeah, until somebody comes in and says, oops, there can be a different way. You don't think about it.
Well, I think also I wish it was a machine, but typically it's chaos. Like the machine is chaos. And because they have processes documented, but then they don't actually follow the processes. So you spend a lot of time, thinking about the happy path of some sort of process, but then the exceptions become the rule. And so it requires this mindset of improving. So, on that point, yeah, actually you came into one of the closing comments that I like to make. But before we do that, it's Jen Dumitrescu, and there's jdconsult.ca. That's the website to her coaching practice on this. The book is How to Run a Successful Real Estate Business. I would recommend this to people who are just starting or running a small business in general, because there's, the practical points that apply. So when I was reading it, I'm like, okay, well, I can, a lot of this just applies to me. And the closing challenge based on this is, if you're in that rat race and you're becoming more overwhelmed, hopefully take some inspiration from Jen and take that pause and hey, can I simplify this and get some control back into my life? Is what I just heard, I think. So, Jen.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. You asked very thoughtful questions, and this was really nice. It's been really nice to have this chat, and thank you for being so kind and purchasing the book and going through it twice. That means a lot to me. And I can see that you really care about what you do, which is also nice. And that's why you're really good at what you do.
It's fun. And it's fun. It's fun. Great reconnecting. Jen, it's been delightful. So jdconsult.ca is where you can find her. And there's some other links and things on the show notes, which will be attached to wherever you're watching or listening to this. So thanks, Jen.
Yeah, or Instagram too, which is great because that is sort of like the most current place.
Okay. Now you did send in
more of my personality on Instagram, I think.
Well, you did send in, and this was the first time ever for, I think this is episode 143 or something, that you have a TikTok account, and we'll put a link into that as well. That's a first. So
let's not, we don't need to be directing people there quite yet. It's a work in progress.
It's a work in progress. Great.
My Instagram is probably more reflective of my personality versus TikTok. So let's just stick to that one.
Thanks, Jen.
Thanks, Chris. Bye.
Thank you for listening. Download the Simplicity Toolkit from ebullient.com to discover the power of the Simplicity Scan and Sprint. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the podcast on your favorite player.